Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I have a camera review. Nikon Z6. Oh, I'm reviewing this so late, 6-7 years later after this camera came out. So the Nikon Z6 was first released back in year 2018, around the third quarter. This camera received a lot of criticisms back then for having borderline unusable autofocus. That was back in 2018. This Z6 never came into my radar until later on in late 2020. Amidst the pandemic, I had a bit of free time. I feel like starting my own YouTube channel. I wasn't going to buy another Canon at that point. I bought a Canon camera back in 2017 because once again, I also wanted to start a YouTube channel back then, but it was more of uploading a video once every 3 or 5 months. I wasn't consistent. So it was like starting over, starting fresh in 2020. Z50 was my primary choice for being the cheapest, and the screen could flip down, you can vlog with it. And then something unexpected happened. Until today, this purchase was a miracle. I spotted a grey import Nikon Z6 in a local online store by a local seller, going for 4,800 Malaysian ringgit, which was the equivalent of $1,100 US only. It almost feels like a scam. The thing is that I know this seller. I have purchased electronic devices from them in the past. So I decided to take the risk and purchase one, and within 2 days, this camera arrived at my doorstep. I was so happy. Whoa, a full frame camera for $1,100 US. I did not even care about the criticisms I read or watch online anymore. By the time I bought this camera, there was already firmware 3.0, making the autofocus very usable in fact. And I would proceed to use this camera for paid freelance work. A quick mention about the ergonomics and physical of this camera. Nikon has always built very solid, very ergonomic cameras. I love using the cameras. It feels really nice to hold and use. However, because I have relatively large hands, this camera actually feels a tad bit too small to me when it comes to handheld photography. So when the camera is very front heavy because you're using a big and heavy lens, you hold your camera tighter, and my fingernails are beginning to dig into the leather wrapping over here, and you can see some damage on the leather wrapping on the internal area over here. That is because I was holding the camera too tight in an attempt to balance a heavier lens. If it was a bit bigger, it would be perfect. Yeah, but since I bought this camera with video in mind, not photography, I'm also happy with the small size in a way, because for video work, you do not want something very big and heavy in case you put your camera on a gimbal, for example. Top LCD, I love it so much. Sony never put top LCDs in their cameras, not even their flagships. This is something I really love using because when I shoot landscape, I shoot low on the ground outdoors, I always look at the top LCD, so I really appreciate Nikon putting the top LCD in their 6, 7, 8 series cameras and above. Now on the side of the camera, we have headphone jack and mic jack, of course. Unfortunately, the Z6 does not charge via USB Type-C. The Z6 II, yes, but not the original Z6. This is a bit unfortunate. The USB Type-C port here is only for data transfer. The EVF on this camera is a very high quality one. Just that there is some lag if you shoot fast moving stuff, which I don't. I really enjoy using the EVF on this camera a lot. If there is one complaint about the EVF, it is the automatic switching between the EVF and the rear LCD. The proximity sensor over here is a tad bit too sensitive. Sometimes all it takes is to hold the camera a little bit too close to your chest and the screen will turn off if I'm shooting with my rear LCD. So I like how responsive the proximity sensor is, but at the same time it feels a bit overly sensitive to me. A small annoyance over there which I think I should point out because it has annoyed me quite a number of times. Battery life is only okay. For my kind of shooting style, I need only 2 batteries for a full day of shooting. For videos, you might need 3 depending on your mileage. I'm not the kind of person who shoots a lot of photographs randomly and then go back and choose later on. I am the kind who is very deliberate with my composition. Once I'm certain I got it, then only I press the shutter button. So I spent like 70%, 80% of my battery just looking through the viewfinder or at the rear LCD, and only 30% of the battery power went to actually taking photos. So that is my kind of shooting style. When you look at it this way, maybe one single full charge of battery, I took like 200 photographs only, which may seem really low, but that is my shooting style. I'm going to talk a lot about the autofocus on the Z6 because I have a few years of experience with this thing. If you compare it to cameras today, released in year 2023, 2024, yes, it is trash in a way. Apostrophe trash. I was a single point shooter a lot of the time because of my experience with DSLRs, but there are occasions where I relied on the IAF and it works, provided you meet very specific conditions. So with the autofocus on this camera, the biggest weakness is lighting. So the AF, the autofocus will miss if you are shooting in very low light, and if you are shooting in backlit situations. For example, you have a human model right in front of you, but the camera just refuses to recognize the eye simply because the human subject in front is slightly darker and the background is brighter. It would jump into the background and focus whatever is in the back. And that is pretty annoying. I'm not the only one experiencing this. I think every owner of this camera experienced something very similar. It prefers to focus on something that is bright in general, regardless of whether it is in front or behind the main subject. The main subject needs to be really well lit. And then the next thing is that, once you go into low light territory, the accuracy of the AF will go down significantly. But if you shoot landscape, you shoot macro, you shoot toy photography, which is my expertise. I am a toy and scale model photographer. Single point AF most of the time, very accurate. So that sums up my experience with autofocus on this camera. I don't shoot fast moving stuff. No wildlife, no spots, so I can't comment on that. I know that it does not do very well. However, when it comes to image quality though, this camera makes me very happy. And I'm saying this as a D850 owner. It was very recently, just a few months ago, I was using this camera to photograph a Gundam Model Kit event and contest as well, I think. So we are looking at macro territory. I was shooting with the 105mm macro Nikon Z. And when you photograph something that is small, you use very small apertures, f8, f11 and so on, in a very dark, poorly lit event venue. So the ISO values were going up, 12,800 all the way to 40,000. There were images taken at ISO 40,000 in this camera when I was at the event. And oh boy, when I imported the images into Lightroom, I was so impressed by what I saw. Yes, there is noise, there is grain, but once I have edited and downsized them for social media, they are very usable. So Nikon Z6, you can go all the way up to ISO 40,000 for casual use and you will be very happy with it. This is a very good sensor. If you are looking for a depreciated used camera and you want full frame, take a look at Z6. Even with dynamic range, I have no complaints at all. I use this for landscape occasionally and I'm very happy with the results I get. Moving on to the main reason why I bought this camera for, which was to make videos for YouTube. So it is not the professional stuff, cinematography kind of thing. Nope, I'm just reviewing products on YouTube. The 4K 30p video on this thing, no crop at all, is amazing. I use it with a macro lens a lot for product shots and I can go very high ISO values easily and the videos are super clean. It reminds me of why I love full frame so much, why I swear by full frame, the image quality at higher ISO values. Yes, no 422 10-bit video, no log video and so on, but I am filming in studio most of the time and in a studio setting like this one and also my other filming station right there, I'm just manipulating around 1 to 2 stops of light, not much. So I don't need the 10 or 12 stops of dynamic range that log video gives me. So that is perfectly fine. 8-bit video is fine to me. Just that even by today in year 2024, this is becoming a bit dated. So I am looking forward to replace this camera with something that is capable of all of the stuff I just mentioned are lacking. You just have to move on, right? So my conclusion with this long-term review of the Nikon Z6 for today, I'm very pleased with it. This camera is responsible for my other YouTube channel going from 0 to 10,000 subscribers, right? So this is something special to me, despite a number of flaws. And for those of you who are looking into buying a full frame camera, maybe your first full frame camera, but you have a limited budget, is a pre-owned or refurbished Z6 worth looking into? Well, this camera apparently went from unusable back in 2018. I did not experience firmware 1.0 or 2.0. My first experience with this camera was 3.0 and it is now on 3.4. So now on firmware 3.4, it is very usable as long you know the limitations of this camera. And the second unfortunate thing about this Z6 was that the single XQD or CF Express card slot, which may turn away some of you. In fact, I know a few people who bought a Z5 over a Z6 because Z5 comes with dual SD slots. This one has a single XQD slot. But personally for me, after experiencing XQD and CF Express speeds, I just couldn't bring myself to go back to SD. So yeah, I mean, if you can deal with the higher cut prices of CF Express, I would still say Z6 is a better buy than the Z5 despite only one single cut slot. Unless you are planning to do photography professionally, freelance work, and you need a backup, then yeah, Z5 might be better. And the reason why I said Z6 is better than Z5 simply for one very simple reason, actually two reasons. The first one being Z5, the video in 4K is cropped, a heavy 1.7 crop, unusable. The second reason being the Z6 has a BSI sensor, Z5 has a FSI, front side illuminated sensor, and BSI will perform better in low light at higher ISO values, slightly cleaner image, maybe by half a stop, but yeah, BSI is better. So if you are specifically looking for image quality, Z6 is a slightly better camera than the Z5. However, if budget is no object, you have $2,000 or $2,500, you want a camera for photography, get the Nikon ZF. Yeah, and you'll be very happy with it. Get the ZF. If you are a hybrid shooter, you do a lot of video, then maybe consider the Z6 III. And that is all for today's review. I hope you found this review helpful and informative. Please give this video a like, subscribe to this channel for more camera gear content and especially toy photography, figure photography content. Until then, I'll see you guys again very soon. Goodbye.